Age is simply a number. Love lasts forever. They didn't look like they fit together. At least not in the way people expect. She had a calm, grown spirit. The kind of woman who didn't rush her words. Who smiled with her eyes before her lips. He was younger. Not just in age, in energy, in movement, in the way he talked about the future like it was all wide open. From the outside, people stared. Some whispered. Some joked. Some asked bold, rude questions. Why her? Or worse, why him? But none of that mattered to them. Because what they had couldn't be explained in numbers. It was never about age. It was about connection. He said it started with her voice. The way she listened. Really listened. Like she wasn't waiting to reply, but to understand. The way she spoke to him without talking down. The way she made him feel like a man, not a boy, without ever saying a single flattering word. And her? She said it was how gentle he was. Not just in the way he touched her hand, but in the way he touched her life. He didn't try to fix her. Didn't try to change her. He didn't flinch when she talked about her past. He just stayed present, patient, real. People told them it wouldn't last. That the gap would show eventually. That one of them would grow out of it, or into something the other couldn't follow. But years passed. And love? It didn't fade. Settled. Into routines. Into habits. Into laughter at jokes only they understood. Into mornings with sleepy eyes and shared cups of coffee. He still looked at her like she was the most interesting person in the room. She still reached for his hand like it was her anchor. And when someone once asked him, "Don't you think you're missing out?" he smiled and said, "I didn't fall for a number. I fell for a soul." And that was the truth. Because love, the kind that stays, doesn't ask for permission. Doesn't follow rules written by strangers. It just knows. And theirs? It knew how to last. They met in a place neither of them planned to be. Not a romantic setup. Not a grand entrance. Just two people in the same space. At the same time. And something clicked. She was sitting by herself. Flipping through a book. Not really reading. More like resting her thoughts. He noticed her from across the room. Not because she was dressed to stand out. She wasn't. It was the way she carried herself. Quiet, self-contained, like someone who had lived a little more, but still held something soft. He hesitated before walking over. Not because he was nervous, but because something about her made him want to speak carefully. When he finally did, he said something simple, just a comment about the book she wasn't really reading. She looked up, smiled politely, and gave a short answer. Most people would have left after that. But he stayed. Not to impress. Not to push. Just stayed. They ended up talking for a while. About little things, music, food, the weather. But in between those topics, there was something deeper growing. He didn't treat her like a stranger he was trying to impress. He treated her like someone worth understanding. And she laughed. Not a fake laugh. Not a polite one. But the kind of laugh that escapes you before you realize you're enjoying someone's company more than expected. When they stood to leave, she paused. "You're younger than me," she said honestly. He nodded. "And you're more grounded than most people I've ever met." That was the moment. The shift. The unspoken, this could be something. She didn't say yes to a date right away. She didn't need to. But she did give him her number. And that night he texted her, "I don't care how many years you've lived. I care how you make me feel when you speak." She stared at the message for a long while, heart unexpectedly full, and whispered to herself, "This might be something I wasn't looking for, but maybe it's exactly what I need." They didn't rush anything. There were no declarations. No long texts every morning. No social media posts. Just quiet meetups. Coffee on rainy afternoons. Walks through the park with no real destination. Simple conversations that turned into something deeper without trying. And slowly, something real began to take shape. He started to notice the little things she did. How she always chose the corner seat at cafes. How she held her cup with both hands like it grounded her. How she paused before speaking. Not to overthink, but to make sure her words were true. And she noticed things about him too. How he listened with his whole body. How he asked thoughtful questions instead of trying to impress her. How his energy wasn't chaotic like most people his age. He had this calm curiosity. She had this quiet strength. And when they were together, time stopped meaning anything. One evening they sat on a bench watching people pass by. The air was cool. The streetlights flickered on. And for a while they didn't say much. Then he broke the silence. You know, sometimes I forget there's an age gap between us. She looked over, surprised. Really? He nodded. Yeah, because when I'm with you, I don't feel younger. I just feel present. She smiled, soft and full, and replied, that's because we're not built on years. We're built on what we give to each other in these moments. And that was it. That was the truth they both carried. They weren't chasing excitement. They weren't proving anything. They were just meeting each other, honestly, openly, fully. Every time they met, the world felt quieter. The noise faded, and in its place was something still and strong. Because what they were building wasn't flashy. It was deep, and for the first time in a long time, they both felt truly seen. Not for their past, not for their potential, but for who they were right there sitting side by side. The doubt didn't come from them, came from outside. One quiet Sunday afternoon, after sharing lunch and laughter that felt too easy to be questioned, her phone lit up with a message. It was from someone close, someone she trusted, someone who meant well, but someone who didn't understand what she had found. The message was short, sharp. Are you really doing this? With someone that much younger? Don't fool yourself. It won't last. She read it once, then again, and suddenly, the warmth in her chest turned cold. She didn't respond. She just set her phone down slowly, and fell silent. He noticed the change in her right away. The way she stopped smiling. The way her eyes didn't hold his the way they always did. He asked gently, what is it? She hesitated, then told him the truth. Not just about the message, but about the fear it stirred up inside her. What if they're right? What if one day you wake up and feel like you missed out? What if I'm holding you back from the life someone your age would have given you? He didn't rush to answer, didn't try to calm her with sweet words. He reached for her hand, firm, steady, and said this softly, I didn't fall in love with your age. I fell in love with how you see the world. With the way you make me better without even trying. With the way your presence makes me feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. She looked at him, eyes cloudy, heart trembling. But what if the world keeps saying we're wrong? He leaned in closer, his voice a little more certain now. Then let them talk. Because the world doesn't get to feel what I feel when I look at you. They don't get to see the peace I've found in your laugh, or how I feel stronger when I sit beside you. They see numbers. I see home. And in that moment, something settled inside her again. Not all at once, not fully, but enough. Enough to remember that what they had wasn't fragile. It was chosen. And that kind of love, quiet, real, steady, can outlast the noise of the world. They didn't plan a big trip. Just a weekend away. Somewhere simple, quiet. A place neither of them had been before. A little cabin by a lake. No Wi-Fi. Just trees, water, and the sound of birds waking them up instead of alarms. They packed light, left behind the noise, and for once, it felt like the world had shrunk down to just them. On the second morning, she stepped outside while he was still half asleep. Wrapped in a blanket, holding her tea with both hands, she stood on the porch watching the mist float over the water. He walked out behind her, hair messy, voice low from sleep. You look like a painting, he said softly, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. She leaned back into him. I feel calm here, she whispered. With you. They stood like that for a while. No rush, no talking, just breathing together. Later that day they went for a walk around the lake, hand in hand, not saying much but fully connected. At one point he stopped. She turned to him, puzzled, and he said, I know we've had people doubt this. I know the gap between us sometimes makes you wonder. But moments like this, they remind me that love isn't counting years. It's feeling time slow down when I'm with you. She looked at him, eyes soft, and this time no fear, just truth. You know, she said, sometimes I feel like you're older than me where it matters. In the way you understand, in the way you stay, in the way you love without holding back. They kept walking, sunlight slipping through the trees, steps falling in rhythm like a dance they'd never rehearsed, but somehow always knew. And in that moment, age didn't exist. It wasn't about who was older, who had more years behind them. It was about what they were building, step by step, word by word, with a kind of love that didn't just survive time. It deepened in it. It happened on their last evening by the lake. They had gone into town, just for a little walk, a warm drink, something sweet. A tiny cafe sat near the corner, tucked between an old bookstore and a flower shop. It smelled like cinnamon and comfort. They chose a small table near the window, just enough room for 2 mugs and 4 hands that kept finding each other. Then, just across from them, an older couple walked in, silver hair, slow steps, but eyes that still sparkled. They looked at each other with ease, like people who had learned every corner of one another's soul, and still chose each other again and again. At first they didn't speak, just smiles exchanged, polite nods, quiet recognition. But when the older man stood up to refill their tea, he passed by their table, paused, and said with a kind grin, "You two look like us years ago." They both laughed gently, the kind of laugh that says, "We're flattered but not sure what you see." The older woman leaned forward with soft eyes. "We met when I was older than him. Everyone said it wouldn't last. But here we are 38 years later." The room went still for a second, not because of the number, but because of the peace in her voice. He smiled, stunned. "Did people judge you?" The older man chuckled. "All the time. But love doesn't check IDs. It checks hearts. And hers? Still the one I come home to every day." The woman added gently, "Don't waste time defending your love. Just live it. Live it honestly. People forget. Age will change everything about you on the outside. But the right kind of love stays young forever." They left not long after. No long goodbyes, just a quiet moment shared, like a blessing passed between strangers. As they walked back to the cabin, the younger couple said nothing for a while, just held hands a little tighter. And then she whispered, "That's us one day." And he replied, without hesitation, "I know, because I'll still be looking at you like this, even when your hair turns silver."